Hello, good evening and welcome. Everywhere in the world, the population of the elderly is increasing and dementia is rising. This is no different in Ghana. A new study that looks at welfare of people aged over 65 in 91 different countries revealed that Ghana was pretty much near the bottom of the chart of the best places in the world to be elderly. Of the main reason is that the elderly poverty rates are disastrously high, as most elderly Ghanaians have no source of income. Moreover, there is a lack of education to the process of aging, resulting in the stigmatization and neglect of the aged people in Ghana, still accused and condemned demented people to witchcraft. The Ghanaian healthcare system is not prepared for the rapid aging population and increase of age-related diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. Section 136 of the UK Mental Health Act permits a police officer to legally remove a person from a public place who the officer believes to be in distress, in need of immediate care and control, and transfer them to a hospital place for safety. This helps protect the dignity of the affected person. In Ghana, often we don't see that. Now, I want to explore the various ways in which we can encourage aging with dignity. My name is Nana Ansakwa, and this is PM Express. When I come back, I will introduce my guest. Hello and welcome back, and the topic today is aging with dignity. It is again one of the areas where sometimes you read these foreign papers and they said, oh, there was a old lady dead in her apartment, and it took 3 weeks before the neighbors noticed that there was somebody there. And he said, oh, no, this can never happen in Ghana. In Ghana, we all live with our mothers. We live in communities. We are so tightly woven. There's no way any elderly person will go through such trauma. You see them carrying their baskets in the middle of the snow, and then you think, oh, no, this will never happen here. No, the fact is, it actually happens here. Now, we want to have a discussion and find out why has, the fabric of society broken down? Indeed, were we living in denial, or is it the hustle and bustle? Now we are too busy. We don't live in the communes anymore, so we are not able to look after. And one aspect is, we always profess to love our mothers and our sisters. However, as soon as they grow old, we say they are witches. But there's a, Basic Needs Ghana, who is an NGO that have taken upon themselves to look after the elderly, especially those who are mentally challenged or mentally sick. Because those are the ones that are very, very much neglected. With me in the studio is Peter Bedimak-Yaro. Peter, you're welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
And good work, but I think you asked a lot of questions because you've done research or worked in this area, so we have to talk a lot around this area. And once again, I want to say congratulations. But as far as the elderly, and not only elderly, but mentally challenged, as a state, as a government machinery, we haven't shown a lot of willpower to say that we're going to help this, part of society.
Yeah, you are right. But before I continue, let me also use the opportunity to congratulate you on your award.
Thank you.
Being a proud son of your traditional area.
Thank you very much.
Getting such recognition, we all share in the glory, and I really admire you for your dedication and support that you have given to your people and the recognition they've accorded you.
Well, thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, but back to the issue, you are very right. Aging, it's something that all of us would come to meet. It's almost like death. And from our work, what we are noticing is the fact that more and more people that are elderly and aging, for that matter, are getting accused of various kinds of things, and most of it seems to lie around their emotional and mental health, and that is cause for concern for us. As you rightly pointed in your introduction, statistics are showing that up to 30% of people who are aged are living alone without an adult working individual with them.
But Peter, that is strange. I mean, I don't know, because, you know, most of the old people that I know, they live in, you know, the courtyard houses, which is the Ghanaian architecture, and they're always little Amma, little Kofi, all around, who sort of run about. So where are these old ladies or elderly who are living alone?
Now, interestingly, Nana, as you know, little Amma, little Kofi have had to go to school, and they now spend quite a substantial amount of their time in school. We are also seeing that where we had families that were 3 generations, 4 generations, great-grandmother, grandmother, father, children, or father and mother and children, is now reducing to mother, father, and children. So there is at least about a generational cut for most families. And let's not think that Ghana is still largely rural, and so we still have the communes. We are becoming, as you also well know, very individualistic. We are becoming more and more people who work out of home. We have a large population that still works on the lands and the rest, but increasingly a large number of people are also taking up jobs that keep them away from home, to the extent that someone like you may have to go home way after 9 o'clock, when maybe previously you'd have just been working around the house, and by 5 you were around the palm wine spot, and by 7, 8 o'clock you are at home to see what's happening. Now you leave early and you go back, and that is what is really confronting people who are aged, to the extent that people leave them early, even if they have the families around them. They leave early, grandchildren go to school, children go away to work, and they are on their own. And most of these come along with emotional problems. As they age, so are other conditions, physical, emotional, otherwise. And that is the problem we are noticing, and think that there is need for attention. Luckily, the WHO is dedicating this year's World Mental Health Day to the older persons, meaning we all need to focus more attention to their needs. And this will start with at least our health systems, ensuring that the ready care is there, just as your introduction so eloquently articulated.
I'll move on, but before I go, you see, even as a state, the state is complaining that, you know, they don't have money, you know, and that's why they don't go into that sector. There's only 3 mental homes or 3 mental hospitals, and they're all down south. So how are you, the Basic Needs Ghana, how are you, you know, funding or even attempting to help this group of society?
Well, our work for a long time has been very general, trying to focus on anybody that has mental health needs. But having worked almost 10 years now, we are beginning to see special populations that have special care. And that is also very much pronounced in the mental health law that recognizes that the needs of the aged, children, and other population groups that need to be given special attention has to be focused on. And that is informing why Basic Needs has paid some particular attention to them. We have had stories of people that we found were destitute. And unfortunately, some of them have had to make, as they become destitute, they street their homes. And it's just a simple support of love and care, of listening to what they need, of getting them the needed professional support, and they can function very well. And based on that experience, we think that our resources should also target people who are aged and can still prove useful to themselves. You very well know that they are still a repository of knowledge. They have a lot to share. They can impart skills. They even have the history of communities, of families. And if you are only ready to to give them that support, we can still derive a lot from them, even though they may not earn income and provide it to us. And that's why we focus on them, getting them to get treatment, at least through counseling and that emotional support, and getting their families to begin to appreciate that they are not yet what they think they are, a burden to them.
I'll get to the families, but I want to find out, do you get any support from state? Saying that, look, here you go, there's a little support, because you also, you're taking some of our workload off us to get a bit of support from the state.
No, not support in terms of cash given to us in our bank books to work with. But I always hasten to add that if you look at the infrastructure that is available, health facilities, the health professionals who are paid by the state, we can say some support comes from the state or government for that matter. Mm-hmm. But a lot can still be done, because even the infrastructure, the facilities that we work in, the human resources, the trained professionals that support the work, lament about lack of the logistics to do the work. They need private places, they need work-friendly environments to handle these special cases. Mm-hmm. You can't spend just 30 minutes with an elderly person with a mental health need. You need probably a number of hours to days, but there's a backlog, and sometimes you just pass them through the conveyor belt without the needed support, and that tells us that the state still needs to do a lot for that to happen. But the little that we are able to contribute to providing the support, we do so, and we are doing it gladly, much as a passion and a mission of our organization, but also hoping that it makes a difference to what the state would have done.
Peter, you've been around for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I want to find out if in the last 10 years you realize that, oh, okay, maybe now we're getting a bit cautious, so we are looking after the elderly more, or now we're getting more selfish, so we are ignoring them more. How's your graph? What's the graph showing? Our
graph is showing an increase, that we are getting selfish, to use your words, with the elderly. Even though we complain generally of poverty, it's also a fact that we are becoming more and more resourceful. More and more people are earning, but we are keeping that wealth or such resources to ourselves, to the extent that we want to see our elderly out of the way so that we can enjoy our lives, which is unfortunate. I have spoken to a few people, or have listened to a few people who are even nursing the idea of, I wish I could just let my old lady or old man be somewhere because I have such a hectic job. It may be for rightful concerns, but I find
like
it
an old people's home.
Yeah, an old people's home. I find it a bit uncomfortable that you say, because I have this job, I just wish my mom or my old father were somewhere so that, or was somewhere so that I can move on with my life. It's a bit unfortunate. And if we are nursing such ideas, then it means we are becoming more and more selfish than giving back to what they contributed to us.
Is it because traditionally it's not us? And maybe we have moved on to a point where maybe now we have to add it to our traditions, because he might be a very busy lawyer, he's a very busy doctor, his wife is a pilot, whereas you'll be unheard of. The children are in university in Harvard, and old ladies at home. So he's thinking, well, if an old lady's home or elderly people home in Osu, she'll be better off there, or he will be better off there, and every weekend we go and see him or her.
Unfortunately, our system has not reached that level. Why do I say so? Even where the few elderly people's home we have, I know they are doing a lot, and we recognize that, but there are still basic facilities that are lacking. And I would hasten to say there is no better replacement than the human being, and the human being who is relational, familial to you in terms of your interaction. And so we would always, no matter the kind of systems we put in place, we will always miss that human touch of it in terms of our relations with our elderly. So yes, we have high-fly jobs. We are very busy. We want to get as much money, acquire as many degrees as possible. But we also need to think about the fact that we are coming to such an age. And mind you, the more we are getting longer lifespans, going beyond 80, 90, and some in the hundreds, it means we are going to ourselves come to such a state. And I think that's the point at which we have to look at it. Would I want to be sent to an old people's home when I reach that level? If you say yes, then maybe you can begin to prepare and make the old people's home really a family home. If not, then you have to give that little attention that your old man or old lady desires before he visits his or her ancestors.
Peter, the elderly who find themselves lonely, I don't know what the trend is. Is it because maybe they don't have 5, 6 children and they have only one child and that child happens to be busy, so then they get strapped? Or these are adults who may have 4, 5 children and they all happen to be busy? I don't know if there's a trend.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no difference. You may even find those that have had just one child or 2 children caring more, and those that have had 9, 10 children being alone. And I have spoken with a few elderly people on the streets of Tamale and elsewhere who tell us that, oh, look, I have given birth to such large number of children, but they have all abandoned me. Most of it has got to do with, again, what you said. When you are growing old and then due to some mental problems that you have to experience because of your age, then accusations of the kinds of person you are bewitching people, you are so bad, you say things that they feel you are not part of them, and that maybe some of them, their problems of not getting job is due to their old lady or old man. The best is to leave home and leave the old man or the old lady alone. And some of them then find themselves on the street. So it's the whole attitude of the way we look at aging, which we need to change. And associating it with accusations of witchcraft, accusations of trying to make them not to succeed.
One-man churches.
Indeed.
The one-man churches.
Yes, I agree with you. The one-man church pastors and prophets, prophetess who always see the fact that you are not getting a husband because your mother said something,
said that.
Or you are not getting a child because your mother has taken your womb and sealed it with something. And so you now detest your old lady who has nursed you all this while. When you were young and infirm and he could have done whatever he wanted with you, she didn't do that, but has now seen you to be of age and you think she can do all that because pastor says so. Unfortunately, it's really destroying the fabric and the bond that young adults should have had with their elderly parents, and it's really unfortunate.
I mean, it's probably, not a necessary question, but do you have forums with like pastors and try and explain to them that, not everything is spiritual and that, don't condemn everything to spirit to make your job a bit easier, because it leads to the witch camps. I mean, I don't know, maybe, there's freedom of worship, but I mean, is there any way you can try and call them and say, listen, not everything is, a witch, and that certain things are maybe self-induced?
In fact, Nana, you are very, very right, that these are areas we have to pay attention, and Basic Needs has attempted doing that in the Brong-Ahafo and Ashanti regions, where working with our organizations, the SEDEP and Mehoso, we've reached out to owners of prayer camps to at least share with them some of these experiences. We have always said that we don't question where you want to worship. Mm-hmm. We are not questioning the efficacy of your prayers. What we do question is the things you ascribe to elderly people, mm-hmm. what you ascribe to young people because of their mental conditions, mm-hmm. and some of the things they exhibit because of their condition, you attribute it to witchcraft. When they just needed some counseling support, a lot of listening ear, rallying around to support the person, than banishment and accusations. And that is what is bringing about all these witch camps and prayer camps. But we have to do a lot more education, because if the young woman or the young man so much believes in his or her pastor and nothing can sway her, then we have a long way to go. But we have reached out to prayer camp managers. Mm-hmm. Some have listened to us and have pledged that they would change. But there are also livelihoods issues to it. That is where he gets his bread. So you must be ready to replace that with something else. And sometimes it's not what you want to replace it with, but what he or she says, if you want me to stop doing this, then you must also let me have that. And that is the challenge.
I see. And the witch camps itself, I mean, do your organization go to the witch camps there, or that becomes out of bounds for you?
We have not, because it's a bit sensitive and controversial, but I do know organizations that are doing quite a lot of work to get them, to get the witch camps more or less abolished, and maybe no more a camp, but it becomes a village for people, said that everybody can use it as a settlement. And I'm very much hoping that it really comes to pass. But looking at our way of life, our culture, the values and the things that our general psyche term, I think we will still have some way to go. Probably outlawing it would be, and I do know the Ministry of Gender, Social Protection, Children and Social Protection are also working hard around that. And we hope that some amicable solution is reached with owners of the camps, the witch doctors who are able to pronounce, and the families, to resettle them in ways that they become more integrated in families. And we do a lot away with accusations of people on witchcraft. It's not helping us, and it is most disadvantage to the elderly.
You see, most people, like, the first option of babysitters is the mother.
Yeah.
I mean, if you keep the elderly that busy, does it help, or does it burden them? To give them, give them that extra responsibility.
I think it always helps, and idleness comes with its own problems, and so where there is an opportunity to let them feel engaged, and that's why where Amma and Kofi were not in school and were always interacting with their grandma and their grandpa, they will run around the house, they will shout at each other, he has to chase you to bath, and the rest, they tease you, you tease them back. Keep them happy and very hearty. Now that they have to sit alone and it's like, oh, we have left food in the kitchen, water is here, when you are ready to bath, but we are going out, it's not helping them. They are becoming bored, they experience distress, they feel emotionally detached, and so get worse with their mental conditions. And so where there is more interaction, it helps a lot. And that is how we want to encourage that it continues as much as we can, even though we are becoming very busy individuals in our own businesses.
Because I get along with my mother very well. I'm almost a mommy's boy.
That's really
not
good.
Quite, but
that's
almost
good.
a mommy's boy.
That's good.
And every other boy that I speak to, has that secret mommy boy tag in there somewhere. So I am wondering, at which point do we disconnect? Because I don't think it's because of any social standing. Boys generally get along with their mothers. So at what point do we disconnect that we leave them, oh, now you become a witch, now you become a burden? When does that disconnection come?
I can't say a lot about that, but I think it is when we begin to think that Mommy is not what I used to know her to be, because she's beginning to behave weirdly. She speaks about certain things, or maybe out of your own concerns, you have seen her in your dream in some way or the other, and already you've heard a few gossips or pronouncements elsewhere that at that age they could turn something else by description of what such connotations of, say, witchcraft or being a Jew person or being something beyond human enters your mind. Then you see her or your dad very differently from the kind of bond you used to have. So it comes back to the fact that recognizing that as they age and become weak and frail and have physical conditions, they also have mental conditions. And that we need to understand these emotional and mental challenges that come along with it, such that even if they speak certain things or you seem to have dreamt to hear them say certain things, or somebody has accosted you or your pastor says, look, I had a vision and this is what I thought the vision was, and it traces back to your mother who is attempting to do something otherwise, then you can begin to understand that it's a stage of aging that we have to accept and see how we support them along. Else we would take the excuse of already even wanting them out of our way because we have busy lifestyles to make it a reality that, yes, this is what I suspected, and now that it has been confirmed by this pastor or the way this my friend has described it, told him by a pastor about his mother or her mother, probably this is what is also my mother is progressing towards. And that can be very, very dissettling for such a family and for the unfortunate old lady or old man.
Peter, why is it that you see a young lady with her short skirt and high heel going, she's by all means never a witch, but the same woman 40 years later, now she's 65, she has a stake and she's walking down the same road, then suddenly she becomes a witch? Where do we get that mentality from?
Well, you see, and again, I can't pretend to know all of it, but from my work and observations, also coming from families, you are growing up at that time, you are very, every shape, very well-rounded. You have a bright face, the vibrancy is in you, and you're very smart and all that, and it's great. Now you are growing old, your face is wrinkling, and you are beginning to take a shape that is like a caricature of something. They see you not very human. You probably have lost your teeth. You are now beginning to talk more to yourself. You are now beginning to say things you have seen, others have not seen. And they say, Grandma, what are you saying? Or Ma, what do you mean? They've had life experiences. Sometimes they live, whether good or bad. Suffered serious accidents or had serious quarrels. They relive them. They sometimes talk about them in their sleep or something. And you begin to say, no, she's not what I used to know her to be. And we are all very afraid, kind of. We have some bit of fear in us. And the more we see that they are not what we expect of them, and they are almost becoming disengaged from reality, then we also ascribe certain things to them. It must be this, it must be that. And that's why when people are young, we all want to associate. As they grow older and older and we are drawing nearer to the grave, we want to disconnect. And probably it's just part of human nature that even if, as we are here, should I drop dead, maybe the way you look at me will be very, very different. So as people progress towards the grave, it's also looked at differently. So I think that's probably part of it. But there may be other issues that people carry along. We have already talked about when people put words or try to describe your old lady because they have seen visions and all that. And you have also listened to some people about older people that have done things. You would always be tempted to say, if she has reached this level, if he has reached this level, he or she must be exhibiting what I have heard. And so that apprehension is there. But it all boils down to the fact that they have such a need as they age, most of it being their emotional and psychological support, which we should not lose sight of.
Peter, and amongst all this, the ones that are most hit are the ones that are poor or poverty. They are the very, very much hit, and probably maybe they are the ones that need that extra understanding. Mm-hmm. What's that disconnect? Why don't we understand that, look, this guy is destitute, this old man is destitute, he's aged, he's alone, probably eating one meal a day, and could do with just another warm meal before. Why can't we, why have we detached ourselves so much from such a basic understanding?
I think the human being generally does not want responsibility. Sociologists, psychologists would tell you. And if it is not pleasurable, nobody wants to be associated with it. So if you are seen as being yet another problem in addition to my many problems, then definitely we want, the average person will want to shy away from you, except for those who are really very charitable, and there are a few of them around. So that is it. Again, you gave a very good example of the young lady and the older person. We want to be connected with things that have life, and it's easygoing, it's nice. But you are seen wretched, ragged, probably very frail. Nobody wants to be associated with you. Just as probably in our own lifestyle, if you seem to be in difficulties, that's the time when you are most in need, that's the time friends abandon you. Mm-hmm. So it's probably so. When they are most in need, that is when very few people care. And so it's probably nice, but it's also the situation that we all have very busy lifestyles. Let me say so. Very busy lifestyles, and we want to move on with our lives and not want to be bothered at all. But I think that is why organizations like Basic Needs and many others in the field have chosen to say, we can't all say we are busy. Mm-hmm. We can do something to help. We can, even if we don't have all that they need, the concern that we show and let them know that not everybody has abandoned you. There are some few people that still want to see you live happily.
And we should all get on board. I'll take a break here, and then when I come back, we'll look at the subject of giving. I mean, do we give to such a cause, or do we just sit down and say, yes, you go and do it? And then to Dorcas Oforiado, you are following the show via streaming all the way in London. So good evening. I'm sure it's good evening there. Enjoy the show. And he says, thank you to your guest for fighting for the elderly. Well, he says, you're welcome. Right after the break, we'll continue the discussion. But we want to look at giving. Do we give to these causes, or do we just sit and watch back? We're coming back. Hello, welcome back, and we are looking at aging with dignity, society's responsibility in looking after our mothers and sisters and daughters who are now old and maybe have got some dementia or Alzheimer's, but definitely not witchcraft. Definitely not witchcraft. Just to remind you that Star Ghana is still working with multimedia in sensitizing the society. Fabric is provided by Woodin, and outfit is designed by Tanti's Fashion in airport residential area, and the telephone number will scroll on the screen. So if you want to get your fabrics, you get your designs, you can call them, and then they would look after you. With me in the studio is the Executive Director of Basic Needs Ghana, Peter Badimak Yaro, and he is educating us on our needs to be socially responsible as we were before we became very urbanized and all busy and big time city boys and girls. But Peter, one thing, our attitude towards giving to a cause like that as a people, I mean, how do you find it? or how have you found in the last 10 years?
There are many individual philanthropists and charitable persons that are willing to give their widow's mite. But I always say that such giving has a limit. And the more we synchronize it and make it a state welfare system where everybody benefits and not just someone who probably frequents a certain street and sees one old lady or old man sitting somewhere and says, look, anytime I pass the street, I see this old lady or this old man, I've got some old clothes at home, I want to come and give. That is just one-off and sometimes cannot be sustained. So we need to have a system of a state welfare system that reaches everybody. And we can express those individual givings by supporting such state welfare systems to really operate and operate well. I do know that, yes, there is the aging policy coming up. Even though internationally there is still a battle to get a convention, even though the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging gives some framework. A lot still needs to be done to the extent that states can become very, very responsible to it. But individual giving, it's good, but let's do it in a way that even people who are not along the street that we see can also benefit. And that's why I would want to call on everybody that can make a contribution. Not just to basic needs. There are many other organizations that are working with old people or are trying to support in one way or the other. The witches comes as well. And even the mental hospitals and mental health units in the various health facilities across the country. We can go there to support in whatever way we can. Imagine you decide that for the fact that this person needs some treatment for dementia or some management for dementia, and you want to volunteer time to the family. You have not given cash, but you have some expertise, you want to help the family manage such a case, then you can help.
Peter, I want us to go on to public education and protection before we go on. But before we do that, do you again find that even though we neglect all these old ladies, as soon as they drop dead, we find the money for the funeral?
Absolutely, Nana, you well do that. And we make a big funeral out of it. And probably the person may have to stay in the morgue for another 3 months. So that we can properly plan. We may have to rebuild the house and paint it and do all that. That is, it seems to be part of us. And I think we can do a lot. Let's celebrate them whilst they are alive, so that even when they go home simply, they have known that they were celebrated and they witnessed it.
I can speak example. I don't want to mention his name, but there's this gentleman who was in Ekropon. And he always wanted 30 pesos. Yeah. He wanted to buy 20 pesos gari and 10 pesos sugar every time. So one time I go to Ekropon and I hear he'd passed. I said, oh really? So where is he? He said he's in the, in the mortuary.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, doing what?
Absolutely.
So the family had put him in a mortuary, and I heard they put him in a suit and had a funeral for him. And he always wanted 30 pesos. I think it's not, I was going to say shame on us, but I think yes, there's shame on us for us to adopt such an attitude that you wait for your mother, father, or uncle to pass, and then you shower all this money. And then they walk about all the time looking for 30 pesos to buy gari and sugar. I'll move on to the education, public education. How do we go about it?
Public education, we have to start from the family. But just as you mentioned at the beginning, I always go back to it. Let's do a lot about our religion and some of our religious groups. Even though we all want to go to heaven, they can still help us a lot to maintain very united families and support our elderly people than always ascribing them to some of the bad things or supposedly bad things that we come to visit our pastors, prophets, and prophetess with I'm not getting a job, I'm not getting a child. And the prayer ends up being the old lady in the house, the old man in the house. I had a very serious illness, or due to some problems, you get a nightmare, and the person you probably see chasing you in the dream is this old lady, and the next time is for him or her to be banished. We can do a lot to support them than always ascribe or associate them with the negative things. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of dignity in aging. As I said, they are a repository of knowledge. And if you care to listen, they will tell you a lot about life, and you can draw so much from it. They have skills. They have gone through it, and they have only retired. And sometimes some of them are not tired. They can give you a lot. But when, because of the state of their mental being, they are unable to help, that is where we have to come in. So a lot more of us to say that, yes, we have high-flying jobs, we have very difficult challenges to face. Sometimes we want to achieve so much that we just don't want the simple mud houses that were built, but we want something like mansion, and so we're chasing it. So a lot of education.
Before we go, we cannot leave this subject without protecting them. And when I say protection, how do we even start protecting this portion or this part of society?
Protection comes back to the state. Increasingly, as we see the visible police around, I think in addition to watching traffic would be to support them. A lot of old people have suffered hit and run drivers and they have died. If we can support them, it will go a long way to help at least sustain them to also live the little life left. And so, first of all, not making the street the place for them to get protection or support, but off the street. And again, the state welfare system has to work. Back to communities where centers can be established, not to go and put them, but they can serve as recreation centers where old people can go play cards, ludo, whatever, and when the day comes, they can walk back home and have their meal and sleep peacefully. Such recreation areas seem not to exist. And even where there are demarcations.
But it's not a lot to ask, though,
no,
is
it's
it?
not a lot to ask for playing cards, draft, ludo, and the rest. And just a shed where they can all come and spend the day. But we are, even in our planning, forgetting about some of these things. And they have to compete with vehicles, get knocked down, and they have to go to the street to be able to eat. It is not good enough. And however minority they may be, they still count and should be supported.
And social services. I'm yet to see social services come and say, oh, this old lady or this old man always keep wandering here, so we are coming to intervene to find out maybe why there's no supervision. I mean, do their powers extend to that, or it doesn't?
Their powers extend to that. Unfortunately, they will tell you that they are not resourced. They may cite issues of vehicular problems. They may cite issues of other logistics, like keeping adequate registers of them. They may cite issues of manpower, that the one person is covering a very large area to the extent that he cannot keep track of all of these. And it comes back again to saying that we have not lost it. We have a good community system. Let's enhance it. We can adapt some of the Western things that can support, but not throw away our old age traditional arrangements that gave them a lot of room for support that we seem to be ignoring and preferring other Western style methodologies that may not help us when it comes to looking after them.
Before we run out, you realize that now, sorry, you have the menace of like the kayayi, as we call them. Now they live on the market and then they probably give birth very early. So if we're not careful, in the next 20, 30 years, it's going to be a complete chaos. Because how then do you keep things in check? I don't know if your organization has started looking into the future like that.
Well, we recognize it, but we can only do so much. Knowing where we come from, we raise our money privately. It's a lot of work to do that. And it's also not the best to spread yourself thin.
Yeah.
So, but that whole issue,
education-wise,
that's a whole issue to educate people to recognize what is happening with regards our own lifestyles, getting opportunity to work, making home better, and stopping to think that everything is rosy at the urban centers. It's something we need to change.
Peter, 30 seconds. We've always grown up to say, hey, shut up, you're a child. You must be seen and not be heard. Now, you grow up, now you want me to be seen and be heard. Could that also have a factor?
It could, but not to the level that you think that you should be abandoned. Because why? There's a level where you can be seen and heard, because when you become an adult, they would consult you.
They'll consult you.
Absolutely.
Well, Peter, thank you very much. I've been talking to Peter Bidimak Yaro, and he's the executive director of Basic Needs Ghana, and they specialize, or they look after the elderly, especially those with Alzheimer's or dementia, and they're saying that protect them, keep them close. Let us go back to being Ghanaians, where the society was where we lived in, and we were our brothers' keepers, and not just leave people and tag them as being witches or everything negative because some one man pastor said this or said that. Let's go back to being Ghanaians. My name is Nanan Sakwa, and you've been watching PM Express, and I say tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Thanks for watching.